The episode that you are about to watch was made before the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I'm currently recording this an hour and a half out from the episode being launched, so I would have felt wrong if I came on here all bubbly and, uh, you know, intense reactions on the episode without mentioning it. So I just wanted to get on this right now and say that my thoughts and prayers go out to the Kirk family, as I have no idea just the amount of pain that they could be going through right now. And I pray that he just ends up, and that I pray that their family ends up okay in the end. That's really all I got. Roll the episode. You know, there are probably going to be some people coming out here to me and saying, like, hey, you're recording this on a Sunday? Isn't that a really bad idea? Like, to record a game on the same day that you just watched it? I mean, we saw how that went for you the first time that you were covering the Tennessee Titans for a season. Did not go well. It actually got you in trouble. So, like, why are you doing this? And I'm just saying this is because I can, and because I want to get content out for you guys, and also because junior year is kind of terrible. But anyway, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Titans Rundown. I am your host, Micah McCamey, and in today's episode, we are going over one of the most egregious coaching performances in NFL history. And we're also going over the Titans versus Broncos game. Yeah, okay. Anybody that's seen my Twitter or my Instagram probably knows how I felt about this game, just from an overall standpoint. But I would like to verbalize it. And I also want to say this hello to YouTube, hello to all the other podcasting services. But most of all, I want to say hello for the second time, actually, to local Manchester radio, Thunder Radio. Yes, I forgot to mention this, but radio, local radio station down in Manchester, 107.9, has given me the chance to have a 20-minute show every Saturday at, I believe, 8:45 to share my thoughts on the Tennessee Titans. And they're going to take this episode and they're going to put it on there. And obviously, if you're listening to this from Thunder Radio, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to say this. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to be a part of a radio station like Thunder Radio, where I can just talk about this. But also, that does mean that I got to keep it a little more under control because, quite frankly, if I didn't know that I was going to be on radio for this, I would probably be a lot more angry and passionate, to say the least, about this game. But again, I'm going to try and keep it at least level-headed. So anyway, let's get into this game. So first off, for people who didn't know, the Titans played the Broncos this week, and they lost in a pretty embarrassing fashion, 19-12. And what I said on last week's episode, I said, hey, look, here's the thing. I'm not expecting us to win this game. That was about the only thing I got right. But if we keep it competitive, then I am completely fine with this. Well, here's the thing. Good news is we kept it competitive. Bad news is for all of the wrong reasons. So let's get into the positives and the negatives of this game. Let's start out with the positives because I like to start out with the stuff that correlates with a win or a loss, or I like to start with the stuff that correlates with the exact opposite of what happened this week, whether it was a win or a loss. So let's start out with the positives. First off, massive shout out to the defense and the defensive coaching. They forced 4 turnovers on the day, and again, they looked a lot more disciplined than the offensive side of the ball. I think that the defense was, again, just very solid today. Big Jeff was getting in there. He may have had a bad moment right at the end where he had that very didn't end up being so costly penalty, but still not really a good penalty that you want to see out of your team captain. But, like, apart from that, this defense was pretty solid. D-line, that could still use a little bit of work, don't get me wrong, outside of Big Jeff and T'Vondre Sweat. But, like, I don't know. I think that the D-line still played fine enough. And the linebackers, big shocker today, they were actually really good. Cody Barton, again, we knew he was going to be solid, but Cedric Gray wasn't that bad either. And then the secondary, again, look, there are some people going on Twitter and trash talking JBJ because of how many penalties they had. Ignore that. There were a lot of soft calls called on JBJ, at least in my opinion. And I do think that he had a solid game. Same thing goes for same thing just goes for the rest of the secondary, except for maybe Darrell Baker had some interesting things. And if I had to give one criticism to the defensive coaching, you got to play L'Jarius Sneed more. Like, I know that he's coming back from injury and you want to slow him back into the process, but the best way to get him to be fully back is just letting him start and go up against one of these wide receivers. Like, I'm just putting that out there that I do think that he should have played more in this game. But anyway, again, just the defense had a really solid football game today, and I'm really hoping that this either continues throughout the season, if we end up being competitive, which chances are we're not going to be. But if we're not competitive, again, I just hope that they keep showing flashes. But anyway, the next positive that I wanted to go over is Cam Ward. Okay, look, Stat Sheet Warriors, I actually argued with one over on X as of recently, are going to try and tell you that this was just an absolutely terrible game by Cam Ward. 12 of 27? Are you kidding me? Absolutely terrible. This kid's trash and all that stuff. Well, there were a couple of other factors that went into that. First off, a lot of drops by the receivers today. That was weird. And that will be one of the negatives that I actually didn't write down, but I just thought of now saying this. Actually, no, I do have it written down. But anyway, I don't know, man. Cam Ward, I thought, looked pretty solid. He was making some good throws. He looked pretty calm in the pocket. He had a couple of bad moments, sure, like whenever whenever we recovered that punt fumble and he scrambled back into a really big sack that ended up being very costly at the end of the game. That wasn't so good. But apart from that, I felt like that he was pretty decent. He didn't make too many stupid mistakes. He made good throws, and really the biggest problem was, well, again, other things I will mention in the negatives, but I think that Cam Ward, again, I saw this on, I was doom scrolling through Twitter after the game, and I just saw this meme about, Cam Ward with the rest of the Tennessee Titans, and it was a picture of, some type of Ferrari in, the parking lot of some type of shack or something. It was just absolutely hilarious to me, more so just because, again, I was just upset about this as all the other people were, about just how Cam Ward's team really let him down today, in my opinion. I think that he could have just been so much better if he had competency around him at specific places. But anyway, just again, overall, Cam Ward, solid day. Stats won't tell you that, and I'm going to have to fight for Cam Ward's honor like crazy this year. I can just feel it. But anyway, last thing that I wanted to mention was the special teams made an absolutely huge jump this year, and that's what you expect whenever you have Bones or John Fossil, as most people call him, as your special teams coordinator. Great special teams presence. He's been renowned as one of the best special teams coordinators in the entirety of the NFL, and he proved that yet again with the Tennessee Titans this week. The punter was good. The kicker made 4 field goals. That's where that score came from. And just, again, overall, really, really solid day by the special teams. And it is very nice that, at least even in this bad of a season, we're at least going to have the special teams that we didn't have under Colt Anderson. That is something I am very much looking forward to seeing. And again, look, here's the thing, right? You take a look at these positives: defense, Cam Ward, special teams. 2 units are on that thing. So you're probably wondering, 2 units and the quarterback are on this thing. So you're probably wondering, what exactly let us down? Well, let's get into that. We're going to do the negatives. So, first negative was the O-line. Again, not really too inspiring. And honestly, I'm not as upset about this one as some people are. Again, Dan Moore didn't play that great. Kevin Zeitler was fine. AC Latham had some bad moments. But honestly, I'm not too worried about this. Not because I don't think that this O-line has the chance to be bad. Like, they definitely can be. But again, this is the first week that this O-line has played completely together in an NFL season at that against one of the best defensive lines in the league. And I'm not even too sure. Double check me if I'm wrong. I don't even know if Lloyd Cushenberry got to play during preseason. So again, I do think that this O-line will eventually pick it up, and I think they'll gel as the year goes on. Maybe they won't be like some amazing top 5 unit by the end of the year, but I think that they can still be average. So a bold statement by me, I know. And again, they really did not play the best game. But I still think that there is a slight chance that they end up being okay. That's something that I can't say about a lot of other units on this team. Like, for example, my next negative, the wide receivers. Golly, what on earth was going on with our receivers today? Man, I don't even know where to start. Calvin Ridley, that's probably the best place to start. He had 4 targets, 4 easy catches they had right in his hands, and he dropped every single one of them. Here's the thing, right? I was proud of the fact that Ridley was actually able to create separation and that he was able to do some things against Pat Surtain today, but we got to really consider some other things. Like, his drops were very bad today. Like, Cam Ward was throwing some serious dimes toward this man, and he just kept on dropping them and dropping them and dropping them. Just a really bad day by Calvin Ridley. And again, I'm starting out with him whenever it comes to the wide receivers because he's the one that I am the least worried about. Like, I'm not too worried about Calvin Ridley as a wide receiver. I think that this may have been just some week 1 bloops and that he'll probably end up getting better as the year goes on about catching the football. But anyway, next thing is Alec Manor. I'll be honest, I don't think Alec Manor played that bad today. He had that one bad drop early on in the game, but apart from that, I didn't think he was that bad, honestly. Like, I think that he had a catch that was ruled incomplete, and trust me, we will get to that. Y'all are not ready for that. Again, gonna keep it a little bit more timid because this is gonna be on radio, but still, like, I am definitely going to not be too happy whenever I uncover that. But anyway, like, Alec Hammond, he made a really good catch that was ruled incomplete. He had a couple of deep balls go his way, and even though he didn't capitalize completely on those, I actually just don't think he was that bad today. I think he could have been better, for sure, but I think that he showed the flashes that I needed to see to make me think, yeah, this guy, he's at least going to be a decent wide receiver at some point this year. I don't know if he'll be great immediately, but I do think he will be solid as he'll become more and more solid as the year goes on. And then there's just everybody else. Van Jefferson didn't really do that much today. Although I will say, if the O-line picks up on the right side blitz, whenever Cam Ward drops back to pass and Cam doesn't get sacked, he was actually low-key open in the back of the end zone on one of those plays. But still, like, again, just not really doing that much. Tyler Lockett is old. That's really all that needs to be said. He is a very much stereotypical Tennessee Titans receiver that's just like, he's really old. He doesn't really do that much, but he'll be at least consistent, I guess. Like, he'll be a nice little safety blanket for Cam Ward in games where the O-line is actually playing decent and the coaches may actually scheme up something okay in some sort of way. But again, just like overall, just not really the best game for the receiver core. And whenever Alec Eomanor played probably the best game out of the receiver core, and he didn't really even get that much action. And again, he just really did not. And he did have a couple of meh plays. That's whenever you know that the receiver core played bad. I just want to put that out there. But again, just not the best game by the receivers. But again, the receivers, maybe if they were actually open more often, they would have gotten over those jitters a lot quicker, and they would have been able to catch passes later on in the game. Or you could have just passed the ball more often, making it a higher possibility that they end up catching the ball. And you're probably thinking, well, why on earth did they not have that opportunity? Well, let's talk about the coaching staff. Offensive wise, again, defensive staff was in the positives. They were great today. But the offensive coaching was absolutely horrendous today. Oh my gosh. I have so much that I want to say about Brian Callahan. Look, I've tried defending this man's honor over the past year. I've tried saying, oh yeah, Will Levis was bad. The O-line was terrible. The receivers outside of Calvin Ridley weren't really that great. And, there are some of these plays where the receivers are actually open. Just give Callahan some time, man. Just give him some time. I think he'll end up being okay. And give him an actual quarterback, and maybe he can make some magic happen. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I was completely wrong about just everything that I had to say about Brian Callahan. Again, you can ask anybody. I was one of his biggest defenders during the offseason. I was thinking, okay, maybe he can get something going this year. But again, he just really, really did not get anything going at all during this first game. Just terrible play calling. Again, it was run, pass, punt, repeat. Again, we're kind of used to that at this point. But here's the worst part. You just force 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions, a fumble. Heck, it may have even been considered 5 turnovers. You have 2 interceptions. You have 2 fumbles, one by the special teams, one by Bo Nix. And then you have a forced turnover on downs. Shout out to Devondre Sweat on that. And you get 12 points out of that. You get 4 field goals. That comes down to coaching, and it comes down specifically to play calling. Absolutely horrendous play calling. Whenever we were in the red zone, run. We're just going to run it this entire time, and then we're going to pass whenever it makes absolutely no freaking sense. Or we're just going to make an absolutely terrible passing play. Again, just really bad by Brian Callahan in that moment. Also, again, I just don't know how else to describe it. Here's an example. Whenever we were backed up on our own 1-yard line, whenever we were up, I believe it was 9-6, if I remember correctly, on the Broncos, we have a decent position here. There's about 1 minute left in the second half, or in the first half, and if we can just run the clock out, milk it, make Denver just lose all their timeouts so that way they don't really have that much time to do anything, then we can just get out of the first half up by 3, which would have been an absolute miracle for this Titans team that really isn't expected to do all that great, to go up by 3 on the Denver Broncos, who are supposed to be really good this year. So what does Callahan do? Instead of milking the clock, instead of run, pass, or run, which is what he had been doing all day and continued to do after that, he potentially does one of the worst things that I've seen and passes it 3 times in a row from the 1-yard line. Absolutely terrible. Almost gets a safety. Just a really just bad moment. And it was the one time that you decide to go pass outside of the last 5 minutes of the game whenever you need to pass. You decide, oh yeah, let's throw it 3 times in a row to end the second half from our own end zone. Just absolutely terrible. And also, this was just a minor thing that looked pretty bad on his part. Wide receiver screen. I don't know if y'all remember this. It was about halfway through the game. Cam Ward throws a screen pass. Literally nobody is there to catch it. Every single receiver blocks. Nobody actually tries to go receive the ball. That's not good. That's coaching. Also, 13 penalties, 131 yards, not good. Just everything was terrible about Callahan's coaching performance today. Disaster class, if you will, by Brian Callahan. Potentially the worst head coached game I have seen as a Titans fan. Potentially the worst head coached game I have ever seen. And that's coming from a dude that's been a Titans and a Vols fan. Take that for what you will. And that's seen some very bad high school football teams. Again, obviously, I got lucky. I was able to be a part of a state championship team, and I'm grateful for that. But I have seen some really horribly coached football games, whether it was from our side whenever I was really young, or if it was from the opposing side whenever we were in our state tournament run. I've seen some really bad coached games. That This game may take the cake for worst coached game I've ever seen. If there's one word that I could use to describe it, it's cowardly. Brian Callahan was a coward in this game. Again, just words cannot describe how upset I was with Callahan. And then, this was the topper of it all. Post-game presser, Brian Callahan is asked about the Alec Edelman catch that I previously mentioned. He catches it on the sideline. He gets his elbow down. It should be a catch, but the refs rule it incomplete. I can see why the refs would rule it incomplete, mostly just because, again, whenever you see that, you can't really give a definitive analysis, and then you go into review just to make sure that you were right, and then you see the replay. Alec Edelman's elbow was down. That automatically counts as 2 hands or 2 feet if you were curious. It should be a complete pass, and we should challenge it. Callahan decides not to. And honestly, already it was a bad enough thing that he didn't challenge it. But, you're thinking, okay, maybe he didn't think there was enough, and he didn't. But, maybe you didn't think there was enough. Maybe you didn't want to waste your challenge right now and waste one of your challenges right now and save those for some time later. That's fine. But then he's asked about it, and he says that it wasn't a catch. That Alec Edelman had to have 1 foot down for it to be considered a catch. Even though the literal rule in the NFL is that if you have your elbow down before any other body part, which Alec Edelman did, it's an automatic catch. Callahan doesn't know the rule book. For goodness sake, man. That's ridiculous. Brian Callahan didn't know the rule book enough to challenge that play that should have very obviously been challenged. Even Joe from the couch eating Cheetos while just seeing a terrible Titans football team and sitting around all day watching football, even he knew that it was a complete pass. Everybody with a sensible brain knew that was a complete pass, and Brian Callahan decided not to challenge it. We have a head coach that doesn't understand the rules of a catch. Now, obviously, some people just don't in general. I'll say I don't understand the rules of a catch sometimes, but that was one of the situations where it was a catch. Again, man, just a terribly coached game, and that one answer from the post-game presser said everything that I need to know about Brian Callahan. This dude's probably going to get fired. Now, here's the thing, right? You're probably thinking there's no hope that Brian Callahan stays after this year, right? He's definitely going to get fired. If at that he makes it to the end of the year, he may get fired halfway through the year if we get crushed by the Patriots, which I say, yes, this is true. But there is a small chance that something could happen and that Callahan keeps his job. It's very minuscule, very tiny, probably not going to happen. But what if he gives up play calling duties? What if he decides, okay, I'm not getting it done as a play caller. The team isn't getting results. We are not going to win this. We are not going to win. I'm not going to keep my job. My coaching staff's going to get fired if I don't at least try something new. What if Nick Holes takes over play calling duties and he ends up being a great play caller? I'm not saying that's likely. It's very, very 0.1% type stuff that we're talking here. But again, just what if it happens? What if that does happen and again, they just end up being pretty and he ends up being pretty decent. The team turns it around and just ends up looking better in the end, and we go a competitive 6-11. That means Callahan keeps his job. Very small chance of it happening, but Callahan, if you want any chance of keeping your job, you got to give up play calling duties to Nick Holes. That's just my opinion. But anyway, well, thanks to this game, thanks to the absolute disaster class that Callahan put on, I now have a list of 5 kind of 7 coaching candidates that I want to talk about. Okay, here's the thing, right? This is in no particular order. I had it in a particular order, but then I realized how weird my list was, so I just kept it in no particular order. I do want to start out by giving 2 honorable mentions, though. Of course, again, people aren't going to let me live or breathe for 5 seconds without mentioning John Gruden as a head coaching opportunity. I don't like it. I think he's a dinosaur. But again, he does have a winning track record, and he has had some very solid moments over his head coaching career. So maybe if this team is as talented as I actually think that they are, I think this team is pretty talented. I just think that they're terribly coached. So if this team has any decent coaching, then maybe John Gruden can get something out of this team. But again, I just don't think that's a good idea. But also, I know that I won't be able to breathe for another 5 seconds without mentioning Denard Wilson. Every single person that you run into as a Titans fan wants us to fire Callahan, promote Denard Wilson. I'm not against it, but it's just very rare that happens in the NFL. Again, if it were to happen, I'd be completely down for it because I do think that Denard Wilson can be a very good head coach, and I think that he is a solid defensive coordinator. But again, just don't think it'll happen. Now let's get into the real top 5. And number 5, I have offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, Joe Brady. Again, y'all have heard my opinions on this dude. I have raved about this dude in the past. I think that he is a dude that takes really good talent and elevates it, which I think that he can do with this Titans offense because I think there is some talent in there. And I think that he can take that and then just elevate it to a new level. And that would be something that I would be very interested in. And just, again, Joe Brady, really good offensive coordinator. I think he would make a pretty decent head coach. Number 4, Clint Kubiak, OC for the Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks, they didn't have the best week 1, specifically from an offensive standpoint. But again, they were playing the Niners, who have a historically pretty good defense, and they got Robert Saleh back, who was one of the best defensive coordinators in the game whenever he was the defensive coordinator previously with San Francisco. He was good enough to get a head coaching job, which after he got fired by an incompetent organization, he came back and did great as defensive coordinator today. But still, I still think that Clint Kubiak is a very good offensive mind. I think that he's done some great things. He knows who to get the ball to say the least. Like, he's the exact opposite of what Arthur Smith is. Arthur Smith is like, oh yeah, let's make a decoy for Jonnu Smith and Michael Pruitt and all that stuff. But Clint Kubiak actually uses his receivers. He's just like, hey, let's just use our best players. And again, that's something that I would really like out of a head coach. And again, he's the son of a former NFL head coach that actually ended up winning a Super Bowl. So there's that. Number 3, I have Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator for the Chargers. He's the only defensive mind that I have on this list just because I think that the defensive minds outside of him and Denard Wilson are kind of dry in the NFL right now, just overall. Again, I still think that Jesse Minter is probably the better of the two between Denard Wilson and I think that he's an innovator at the defensive coordinator position. I think that he is going to do some amazing things over this next year with that Chargers defense, and I think that he will have a head coaching job next year. I don't know if it'll be with us, but he will have a head coaching job somewhere. At number 2, I have Zach Robinson, offensive coordinator for the Falcons. This is if Raheem Morris keeps his job because, again, if you get fired as a head coach and that means your coordinators probably go, which means that you probably lose a chance of a head coaching job. But I don't know. I think Zach Robinson's a good offensive mind, man. Like, I think that, and again, he's been around Sean McVay, so that's obviously a big upgrade for him. But, also, I just think that he's got some really good offensive concepts. And I think that he has, the head coaching, aura about him. I don't know how else to describe it, but he has an aura about him that screams oh, yeah, that's head coaching material. Again, I just don't know how to describe it. But, again, this offense plays pretty well this year. I think that he could very well end up being one of the favorite head coaching candidates by the end of this year. Again, if Raheem Morris keeps his job. But anyway, at the last spot that I have, number 1, Mike LaFleur, offensive coordinator for Rams. Okay, I've gone to bat for Mike LaFleur in the past, saying that, he did have a bad stint with the Jets. But again, I don't think that you can really blame him for that because the Jets were just kind of offensively incompetent. I think that if he has what they have right now with Justin Fields, who isn't a great quarterback, but he's better than Zach Wilson and whoever the heck else they were playing, I think that he is significantly better. And again, I think that it is also really nice, a dude that's been around the NFL for a while, going to the Sean McVay system and learning some even more amazing things. And I think that will help him out intensely as an offensive mind. And I also think it would be great if we were able to come back full circle and see Mike LaFleur, the little brother of Matt LaFleur, get hired as the Tennessee Titans head coach after we picked Vrabel over, again, Matt LaFleur, who ended up going on to be a great NFL head coach. But again, that's it for. But again, what do I know? None of these guys could be head coaching candidates by the time that February comes around, and I could end up just looking dumb. But anyway, that's it for today's episode. What do you think about this game? Who was most to blame? Was it the receivers, O-line, Callahan? Was it or like was it something else? Let me know in the comment section. Also, do you think that we should get a new head coach after this year, or do you think that Callie just needs a little bit more time to develop? Again, I think the answer to that question is pretty obvious, but I just want to see if there are any Callie defenders still out there. So anyway, I have Instagram and Twitter under the Titans Rundown if you want to go check those out. And that's really all I got. So anyway, that's going to do it all for me. This has been a rundown of your Tennessee Titans. I love y'all, and Tighten up.